Okay, the Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the respite that we had away from your word. But Heavenly Father, I know these ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sure that at some point they sought out your word each and every day, even if we weren't in Bible study. But Heavenly Father, we're back together, and not all of us are here. And I'm not sure what's going on with the Pascos, but I do ask you to be with the Pascos and with Betty. Betty had her eye surgery, her second eye surgery on Monday, and I'm sure that's why she's not here today. So please keep your healing hand on the Pascos and Betty, so that next week when we come back together, well, not next week, 2 weeks from now, we will all be together and looking at Genesis. Heavenly Father, I know your Holy Spirit is here and is working among us and helping us to understand, why God did what he did to Sodom and Gomorrah. Heavenly Father, I ask all of this in his precious name. Amen. Okay. The first question, it says, life is generally filled with making compromises. What are some of the benefits of compromise that you have witnessed, and what are some of the drawbacks? So what do you say is compromise? Give me a definition for compromise. Oh my.
If you're with a group and the group is doing so-and-so, and you're the only one that doesn't agree with it, but you like your friends, so therefore you just go along with the program.
But that's not,
Yeah, you're compromising your values to their...
Well, that's true, but they don't know that.
Well, some of the benefits are a compromise. If you're working together and it's a big deal, you work with someone to get a job done well, but be sure you understand the plan completely so that you're both all doing the same thing. Or
Yeah.
My husband and I compromise a lot. Like he'll say, well, no, let's not do this until tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll say, but no, I need butter today, from the store, So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's back and forth like that. Or we'll go to Wegmans and then we'll go to Walmart and I'll go, well, okay, but I would rather go to, back and forth like that.
Yeah. I said that compromise means both parties give something up, but still win.
Oh. Well, see, our compromise, big deal. Oh, okay, we'll go to Wegmans.
Yeah, but some decisions that have to be made, maybe the other party you're making that decision with. I think of it because of business, I guess, more, from being in the corporate world and all that. We compromised all the time. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to say, no, we have to do it this way. And a lot of it has to do with legality, No, we can't do that because this is the legal way we have to do it. But I think, marriage, you compromise all the time, don't you?
No.
He just lets me win.
No.
Yes,
Is that a happy life? It's a happy wife.
I think I learned to compromise more when I became a teacher and I was head of the entire second grade. I
Yeah.
had to get the teachers' opinions and we had to do this and which books we were going to order and we were compromising what we were going to do. And I did that.
But you had your rules too that you had to abide by. So there were rules that you couldn't compromise on.
That's right.
And I think that's, and I think there's, in marriage is a little more flexibility, I think, with it, but it's still, it helps if you can compromise.
You also have to compromise sometimes with your grandchildren.
Oh, yeah, well, not just your grandchildren, with your children. I mean,
When he came, he said, we're going to cook today, and this is,
Logan?
yes, all day, all day. He had these ideas. We did, and we cooked and did all this kind of stuff. And when his parents picked him up, he said, now sit down, I have something important to tell you.
No way.
Because I just want you to know I ate about 5,000 calories.
He told me that to do something in church, how many calories.
Oh, he did tell
how old is he?
He just turned 10.
Yeah, he's 10 going on 40.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever talked to him?
He is great.
Oh my gosh. If you closed your eyes and just listened to him, you would swear he was older, much older than what he is. I mean, he just has that air about him. He's, he's bright.
Yes, that
He's a very bright young boy.
he is. But we have Isaac there who lets people in and greets
Yeah.
them in the morning. And I said, I have been talking to Isaac. He says, okay, I do. So he goes over.
Yeah. Did you
We're talking back and forth.
do you see how Isaac came over on Sunday to us when we were sick?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was talking again. And
Yeah.
did you see that when we had to share the piece, he came down the aisle and came across to me and took my hand? Oh, yes.
He's a
He
cutie.
is so cool.
I
Yeah.
don't understand why.
Because, I mean, I have been a greeter forever, and I'll go, hi, Isaac, how you doing?
I always say hi to him.
And that's all.
But he does say hi back to me.
Yeah, yeah.
But he
I'll
actually
get a grunt.
talks to me and
Yeah.
brings things over. And
He's just made a connection with you, and that's a good thing.
That is.
I mean,
Jealous.
his mother said, I said, yes, he talked to me today. She goes, oh, okay. And I said, I really enjoy it. She said, I'm going to tell him that. And, she found out that he's been talking to me. And Terry found out. She said, I can't get over how much he comes over to you.
he's
It's cool. That's
he,
very-
yeah.
But Logan decided to do it. He says, now, what's the difference between greeting and ushering? So I explained on the way over. So when they came in the morning, he says, well, good morning. How are you today?
Oh, he's something else. Okay, tell me what we studied in our last lesson.
Oh,
Well,
Abraham.
Yeah. God visited him.
Mm-hmm.
And Abraham requests him to do certain things, and God always seems to agree. They have,
Is that the doorbell?
No.
no, but somebody's up here somewhere close. I can hear.
It could be Ed. He was up there working. What else? Okay, we know God visited him. He had 2 angels with him, right?
Yes.
Okay, what else happened?
God explained to Abraham what he was going to do for punishment for the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah.
And then what did Abraham do?
Abraham wanted to negotiate.
Yes.
Yeah. He wanted God to compromise.
Uh-huh. And he did for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. If you, what is one good thing you can say about Abraham?
Oh, with this compromise, he had a caring heart for other people.
Yeah. What else?
He truly believed in God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He had a,
God
Yeah.
had the power to control everything.
yeah. Yeah. He had a very strong faith. Now, what was his nephew's name?
Lot.
Okay. How is Lot like Abraham? Or is he like Abraham?
No, I don't
Not a
think
good
it's too much.
upbringing. He didn't stick to it, but.
So the last time we heard about Lot was way back in chapter 13. So,
Well, he certainly knew that if he was in trouble or needed help, he could go to Abraham and get it.
yes, he did know that. And he was rescued. That's the last we saw of him, remember? He was forced to be with the king of Elam, and he got rescued by Abraham. He was captured.
Well, Abraham was like security blanket.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yes, yeah. No.
But he didn't learn from that because he went back to Sodom.
Well, that's true, and that's another thing. Initially he was in a tent, right? But then over time he went into the city of Sodom and had a house, and gave up his tent. And now, did Lot actually live like the people in Sodom?
No,
No.
just tolerated them.
Yeah. One of the things, but he used them, didn't he? I mean,
I was gonna say, well, it was his way to be above them and have the authority over them.
yeah, because he became a judge. I mean, he would sit out at the gate, and people, so they, I think they thought that he was like them a little bit, but he really wasn't. He didn't do all the things that they did. But he was out at the gate. He gave them that, almost the image that he was like them.
Well, they said he was an outsider.
Yeah.
So,
Real quick, right?
Yeah.
but with him having wealth,
Was she going out to the door? Is that what she said?
Yeah, that's what she said. She's going to check and see what's going
Oh.
on.
Somebody would, anybody from here, I would
oh,
think.
don't you hate that? Look, I may have a problem myself because of this and this and this. So I use this. Oh, gosh.
Except I'm probably
Oh, my God, I'll tell you what happened to me when I was saving there.
Yeah, they're
It
cleaning the
was
bathrooms,
hysterical.
that's what we were hearing.
Well, I had no help.
Good, because we
I
need
had a
clean bathrooms.
ginger ale. I needed ginger ale. I took it out of the refrigerator and walked over to the
Okay,
like that, and it exploded all over the kitchen and me.
Okay, well, we're working on chapter 19, and it's basically on Sodom and Gomorrah. And so we'll start. The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. Remember, that's where he would sit to be the judge, right? When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. "My lords," he said, "please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night and then go on your way early in the morning." "No," they answered, "we will spend the night in the square." But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. So now, here are the two angels that have been with God, right? They're visiting, that had visited Abraham, are now visiting Lot. And as I said, he was sitting at the gate like he would to be a judge, which showed a little bit of authority that he had in the city, even though he might have been considered an outsider, but they still looked to him. It says here in your book, acting as judges for the people of the city, as well as leaders and decision makers. So he had risen to prominence, but he did not do what they did. And it says, "Please turn to your servant's house." Lot's invitation to the two angels to partake of his hospitality was most likely not only courtesy, but an effort to protect them. from the known perversity of the Sodomites. So they did enter his house because he was, as I said, he moved from a tent to his house, and he treated them like he would anybody. I mean, that's the one thing about the Hebrew people. They had this etiquette that, you know, you could be a stranger and walk up to their house and they would wash your feet, which the roads that they walked on, you know, their feet were dirty. So that was something that had to be done. And of course, a lowly servant, probably the lowest in the household, would be washing the feet. But and then offered them a meal and everything, and a place to stay. So it says, all the people from every quarter. That's a lot of people. I mean, that's not just like 10 people coming to say, hey, what's going on here? You know. And they had a chance before, and they were there before the angels even had a chance to go to bed. I mean, to retire for the night. So here they are. They surrounded the house. These, I like what the author says. He says, these lustful savages had no intention of parley or even seduction. They arrived at Lot's house intent on violently taking what they wanted. You know, so here is the group, and they surrounded the house.
These are all men, though.
All men. Oh yeah, the women were nothing. Let me tell you. You know, they. Well, there's still men in this world today that think that. They called to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them. Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him and said, no, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you want with them.
Ain't that nice?
But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. Well, you know, reading that, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. You just sacrificed your daughters to these same men, but you're willing to, you know, because you invited these 2 angels under your roof, you're protecting them, but you're sending your daughters out. And they would have probably been killed. I mean, it wouldn't have, I mean, it wasn't like they were just going to have sex with them and then throw, you know, say, okay, go back home. No. They could have.
They were both engaged. I mean, they were supposed to be getting married.
But, I mean, so.
They didn't have anybody there to help them, though.
Yeah, but the thing is, that I found out, Lot was wheeling and dealing in his head, like you said. Those 2 men that they were betrothed to wouldn't allow it to happen. But Lot knew these homosexual men out in this crowd wouldn't have anything to do with the women. It was an insult to them. I'll give you my daughters. Well, no, we want the men.
Well, if they were so perverted, they probably were
Exactly.
bisexual. I'm sorry.
You know.
So they would have gone after the women, too. Some of them would have gone after the women.
Well, yeah, I mean, just because they wanted to have sex with the men then didn't mean that they didn't like women either.
Right, but I looked up the history of the conduct of that area during that time, and it was foul.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean, there was a trade route that would go through that area. There were 5 cities in that area that God let one of them slide, but 4 of them were destroyed, and Sodom and Gomorrah was the worst of all of them. And the trade, they would rape and murder men on the trade route and leave their bodies for the animals to eat. You
That
know,
doesn't surprise me.
and they would have like orgy parties where women were not invited, and they would drink wine and kill the, you know, like, we can't imagine what went on in that town behind those closed doors.
Well, sometimes you can't decide, you can't tell what's going on in your neighbor's.
Right, exactly. But I think he just put them daughters out there because they were lower rank and they were engaged and he knew those men.
Well, he wasn't, I don't, well,
I would make him Father of the Year.
no.
Way.
No, that is for sure. And so the question is, does God really condemn homosexuality? Well, yes. All you have to do is read Leviticus 20:13
Right.
or 1 Corinthians 6:9. You know, I like it. It says Lot's folly. We now begin to see how Lot's years of following the world's priorities have turned him into a fearful and unwise old man. You know, so he said, "Please, my brethren, Lot demonstrated he lost his wisdom when he tried to compromise and hold peace talks with these men." Come on. They were like a mob. I mean, they weren't out there to do good. They were out there to do evil. And he said these wicked people were not interested in reason, truth, or compromise, but only in satisfying their desires. You know, it is telling that Lot referred to these ungodly men is my brethren. And in our version it says friends. The world is not a brotherhood to God's people. And then he offers up his daughters, and he thinks it's, you know, because they haven't been with a man yet. So I guess that thought that would make them more appealing to them. And you may do to them as you wish. Can you imagine? I mean, what? Like your book says, what a tragic picture this presents of how far a man can sink. That he would actually offer his virgin daughters out there to be abused and as the book says, probably killed. I mean, come on, what's going to stop them?
Right.
It's an entire city of men. You know, it is tempting to see Lot as a vile man, and in this instance, his actions were clearly inexcusable. Yet the New Testament refers to him as righteous Lot. This is yet another demonstration of God's grace. He is able to save even the lowest of sinners. Okay, let's continue reading. "Get out of our way," they replied. That's the crowd. "This fellow came here as an alien, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them." They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved toward to break down the door. But the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness, so they could not find the door. The two men said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons or daughters, anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against this people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it." So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, "Hurry and get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy this city." But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. With the coming of the dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, and you will be swept away when the city is punished." So now the angels have protected Lot, right? I mean, from the angry crowd. They drag him back in behind the door, and they do what they need to do. They blind the people that are out there so they can't find the door. But now they're telling him, "You got to get out of here." You know, not pack up your household or any of that. Just get out. You need to move. like now, and they get, but the sons-in-law, I thought that was interesting. They thought he was joking. So they didn't do anything.
Right.
But the angels then said to Lot, get your wife and your 2 daughters and leave. And he did that. He did that. He did. He took them away from there. When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and of his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, flee for your lives. Don't look back. And don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away. But Lot said to them, no, my lords, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. But I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me, and I'll die. So here he's being told where to go to be safe, and he's afraid. He's afraid of going to the mountains. So who's in the mountains?
Abram.
Yes. Yes. Look, here is a town near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared. He said to him, very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it. That is why the town was called Zoar. So now here we have him getting ready to go. But he doesn't want to go to where they want him to. He's afraid. And he's afraid that it says that, some evil will overtake me and I will die. Lot presented a strong contrast to his uncle Abraham. He had just seen the dramatic rescue and patience, grace of God in his life, but here he invented fears of what might happen if he obeyed God's further commands. Abraham, by contrast, obeyed in faith, and it was counted to him as righteousness. So he was allowed to go to this little town that must have been on the edge of the mountains or something. He wasn't in the mountains. And he's an interesting person. He wants to be saved, right? But then he puts a stipulation in there, doesn't he? Because he's afraid. I mean, he's questioning angels.
And he knows they're divine.
Oh yeah, he knows. But he's questioning them. No, I don't want to go to the mountains. Yeah, I want to go to this little town. And of course they give in and they let him do that. But so now if we continue with verse 22, it says, by the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, including all those living in the cities, and also, and this is important, and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. So why do you think she looked back?
Oh, I read a lot about that, and how it was done like visual effects. If you're running with your husband and your family, she may not have been able to keep up with them. But the ground is moving, the sky's getting dark, the sulfur's coming down, the earthquake of the ground's like this. She's leaving her friends and her position. And all this explosions going around in her head. and she just might have been dumb enough. She knew she wasn't supposed to look, but curiosity killed the cat, and she turned around to look.
Well, it turned her into salt.
Right? But when you, like all the sound effects and the darkness of what they were running through, I mean, this whole sky was raining down sulfur on fire. And you got the smells, the screaming people of the town. The town falling, the ground shaking. That's horrifying. And yet she wants to say, oh, I miss my friend. Might have been curiosity. And she,
Well, she definitely was disobedient.
and she had a double.
I mean, why would they say you shouldn't look back? Do not look back.
It said she had a divided heart, a love for her family, who she was trying to keep up with, but the attachment in her heart for her personal thing and the value of city life.
Well, and that's another point too, that she was, curious is a good word, I mean, but she liked that life, I think.
Right?
Yeah.
And so she was looking back to see what was happening, and she's a pillar of salt.
I came up with a question, like, she knew the angels were there. She knew Lot's relationship with Abraham. Was she around when Lot was with Abraham? And did she have a relationship with God?
We don't
The
know.
Bible doesn't say that.
We don't know. I mean, it's almost like you have to assume.
Or make up, you know, that's a, you don't want to make
I
up
mean,
stuff.
I mean, Lot came out, you know, into the world with Abraham, so you would think
He had
that,
a wife.
yeah, he brought his wife and family and Lot. I mean, so she had to have, but apparently her faith was like Lot's. You know, it wasn't strong enough to be obedient, and that's what happened. She was disobedient, so she was turned to a pillar of salt. Which they were told that you can't look back. Then when you know, if an angel's standing in front of you and saying, "Don't do that," come on,
How dumb.
they got the backing of God, right? So if you believe, if you have faith in God, you should not do what, you know, you do what they say you to do. So, well, on page 86 at the bottom where it says Lot's shameful end, Lot's fear became his motivating force toward the end of his days, and he once again lost his trust in the Lord. This sad story is the last we hear of him in the Old Testament. So, it's in verse 27, early the next morning Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham and brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where he had lived. Lot, in the next story is about Lot.
He turned to salt.
He didn't look around.
No.
Now he did.
He did. Abraham, he looked at.
Well, yeah, but he wasn't escaping Sodom and Gomorrah. He's on the mountains,
Yeah.
so he was safe.
So if
Campsite.
people on the mountain could look and watch it, but if you were escaping.
Well, we don't know that they actually watched it. We just know that Abram came out and.
That's confusing too.
See, those cities were located in a plain.
Yeah,
And it had all that beautiful rivers.
I don't care about that. If you couldn't look back at the destroyed city without turning to salt, why?
But I think the reason he told them not to look back was for them to be obedient and to give up that life. That's the bottom line. She was on shore. That's why she looked back, because she wasn't convinced that wasn't an okay life. So she's looking back towards it, which is not good. That's why they didn't want them to look back on that life. God wanted them to forget it. Yeah. But Abraham,
He was okay.
yeah, he was already safe. So, well, and it's the next thing, he says he was afraid to dwell in Zoar. This may be because Lot felt the people in Zoar would blame him for the nearby devastation, or because Lot himself was afraid that the further destruction might come to the surrounding areas. We again see Lot motivated by fear rather than by faith. This is a direct contrast to the confidence in God that characterized his uncle Abraham. So if we look at the story of Lot and his daughters, here again, this kind of tells you what's going on. I mean, his daughters, it tells you about his daughters. They didn't have faith either. Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. One day, the older daughter said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is no man around here to lie with us, as in the custom all over the earth. Let's get our father to drink wine and then lie with him and preserve our family line through our father." That night they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and lay with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. The next day the older daughter said to the younger, "Last night I lay with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go and lie with him so we can preserve our family line through our father." So they got their father to drink wine that night also, and the younger daughter went and lay with him. Again, he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites of today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. So,
Yeah, but they hadn't been given any kind of religious upbringing, had they?
don't know.
See, that's why I was wondering, because the mother might not have had any,
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know anything about the wife either. I mean, we can just think about it and assume. But I mean, if God was willing to move Lot along with Abraham, I mean, Abraham was the big guy, right? He is the one that was, but he took Lot with him. You would have thought that they had some religious background. I mean, just, I guess, so you would think his family was. But how easily influenced, was the wife and the daughters when they got and started to live in Sodom?
But not only that, Sodom practiced the pagans.
Yeah.
So all that,
But they're surrounded by.
yeah, and Lot's just letting all this, as
Yes.
long as he could be an official of the city and line his pockets, he'll just look away. But I was looking at those daughters, like the oldest daughter, Moab. The oldest daughter's son was Moab.
Right.
That's a Moabite. The younger daughter was the Benjamin. He's the father of the Ammonites.
Right.
And both the Moabites and Ammonites caused a lot of trouble during the history of the Israelites.
Oh, well, yeah, they
It's
were.
like a thorn in their sides.
Well,
That was a sin, right?
well, yeah.
That affected the Israelites' history. No, what I was surprised at that the daughter's sins went into the history of the Israelites.
Yes.
and how that sin just migrated and did so much damage towards the Israelites, God's people. The righteous versus the unrighteous.
Well, and like your book says, it says Lot's flirtation with the world, concluding with the incestuous immorality of his daughters, ultimately led to suffering and warfare for God's people for many generations to come. I
And
mean,
these two, my mind goes, if these two girls were virgins, well, they sure knew what to do with daddy. But it's just like,
you know, I
yeah,
thought
read
the
between
same
the
thing.
lines.
And the other thing, I know they got him drunk, but I
Right.
was amazed that he was able to have an erection and get pregnant.
Or, see, we're thinking at the same, well, you know, I did a whole thing on that, how the alcohol affects the function of the brain that makes you think. So that's why most drunks act like,
And then they don't remember anything.
no. You know.
well, and he didn't remember
Under the
anything.
influence of alcohol, Lot was aware, but the alcohol gave him impaired judgment. Well, yeah.
Okay, we're going to look at.
Look, Martin Luther, you know.
Yes, I know him very well.
I read his manuscript on the book of Genesis. And down at the bottom of his thing, it says, please, you know, don't make too much of it. Just read it as it is. You know, don't tear it apart. And I thought, oh, we're doing a good job of this. You know. Same thing.
See, and I also thought, of all the Bible studies, and I mean, I was raised constantly, we were having Bible studies. I don't remember this part about Lot. That was never, ever taught to us.
Talk to us.
Well, no.
No,
I
because
mean, it was just never, ever brought up, even when we were much older. In any Bible study, it just,
Genesis 19, what? No, I don't think there is.
Yeah, right.
We always stop with the pillar of salt.
so that's where we stopped. It was always there.
Well, that's true. Well, I mean, even in youth, I mean, you'll talk about Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, they'll teach that, but you don't. Yeah, you're right. You don't get to that section. You know. Okay, 2 Peter, chapter 2, and it's verses 4 through 11. I'm going to read them all. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, putting them into gloomy dungeons to be held for judgment. If he did not spare the ancient world when he brought the flood on its ungodly people, but protected Noah, a preacher of righteousness, and 7 others, if he condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah by burning them to ashes and made them an example of what is going to happen to the ungodly, and if he rescued Lot, a righteous man who was distressed by the filthy lives of lawless men, for that righteous man living among them day after day was tormented in his righteous soul by the lawless deeds he saw and heard. If this is so, then the Lord knows how to rescue godly men from trials, and to hold the unrighteous for the day of judgment, while continuing their punishment. This is especially true of those who follow the corrupt desire of the sinful nature and despise authority. Bold and arrogant, these men are not afraid to slander celestial beings. Let even angels, although they are stronger and more powerful, do not bring slanderous accusations against such beings in the presence of the Lord. Now, Peter says a lot there. You know, he goes through in the very beginning and shows us 3 judgments that God made. And the first is the angels. Remember, God sent, he had some angels that didn't do what they were supposed to do, and he sent them to hell. Guess who's the number one angel that did that?
Satan.
Yes. Then the second thing is he did not spare the ancient world. He created a whole flood to kill everybody except for Noah and his family. You know, so his judgment reduced the world, the humans, to 8.
Starting fresh.
Yeah, start fresh. And you know, I mean, Noah was a righteous man, but that doesn't mean he was sinless. Nor was Lot, nor was Abraham.
Well,
And you know, but they had their faith.
Both of them.
Yeah,
Alcohol
yeah.
was worked on both of them. They both sinned with the alcohol.
And then the third, of course, is Sodom and Gomorrah. And it says the third precedent for a future divine judgment on the wicked is the total destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities. As we have seen, this judgment destroyed every person in the area by incineration. You know, he made them an example. And they talk about one righteous man. Even though Lot had his failings, God called him righteous and delivered him from the destruction on Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, Lot was righteous, as all the saved are, by faith in the true God. Righteousness was imputed to him by grace through faith, as it was to Abraham, and it is to us. You know, it says, oppressed by the filthy conduct of the wicked. There was spiritual weakness in Lot, yet he did hate the sins of his culture and sought ways to protect God's angels from harm. And to reserve the unjust, it says the wicked are kept like prisoners awaiting the sentencing that will send them to their eternal prison. So, you know, it's mentioned here, Peter mentions it, but he mentions it as the third thing that God did, and you know, and why. And he explains the righteousness of Lot, I think, a little bit more. And but going to the questions, I want to check the time. It's just 12 o'clock. We should get done by 12:30. I told Sarah, hopefully we'll be done. She'll be back by 12:30. Unlike Abraham, question 1, unlike Abraham, Lot had given up his nomadic lifestyle and settled himself in the city of Sodom. How did that affect his wisdom and decision making?
Well, he knew before he went there that Sodom had a reputation of being wicked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And living among such ungodly culture would eventually change his outlook.
He began to think like them after a while.
You know, I think he knew when he got there, he was seen by many, he seemed to have been accepted, and he became a judge, and they gave him power, and I think that's what turned him to stay.
And he didn't rely on God anymore. He
Yeah.
felt like,
Right.
I've gotten all this wealth and everything, and they like me. So,
But he didn't turn to their ways.
No.
You have to remember that.
No, he didn't turn to the ways, but he liked living in the city.
Well, he liked the power that he was given.
Yes, because he became controlled.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, he controlled everything he did affected his family,
yeah,
as well as the welfare of the people of the city.
yeah.
And he had the knowledge of God, but he didn't
He didn't spread that.
No, he did not share it, that's for sure. And, well, they probably wouldn't listen to him anyway, you know. I mean, basically, he became part of the community, but he only in the fact of his control and having the power that they gave him by being a judge and all of that. He didn't exercise his right with their sexual deviation and all that. Question 2, in what ways had Lot lost his credibility with his neighbors and his own family? How did he lose that credibility?
Well, he was a righteous man, and he lacked the influence of God's ways to show to the people. And I thought he may not have lost his way in his trust to God. His lifestyle as a political officer, he didn't include God in any of his judgment.
But what's the one thing he did that lost his credibility with his neighbors? The one thing.
He offered up his
Giving up his
daughters.
daughters, you know?
He didn't show God's ways throughout the people.
No, has nothing to do with that.
He refused to let,
There's one thing.
he wouldn't,
Who did he protect?
the angels,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the big deal.
not his daughters, but the angels.
I mean, that's where he lost his credibility. Because he wouldn't give those angels to them to do their
Oh,
stuff.
I see, you know.
I mean, it had nothing to do with how he lived and all of that. I mean, that is the one thing that probably got him to be a righteous man. I mean, you know, because he didn't kowtow to them. He didn't throw the angels out the door and say, here, you know. He protected them. Yes, okay, he was foolish in saying, hey, you can have my daughters, but, you know.
The custom of the day was to protect your guest at all costs.
Well, that's it, see? He was following his etiquette, you know, the etiquette of the way they lived.
Important than God.
And,
That's why I said
and like I said,
he
you
didn't
know,
have trust in God. He just didn't have him in his
I mean, girls, I mean, his daughters were nothing to, I mean, seriously.
You don't notice his wife saying, don't do that to our daughters.
No.
Yeah, I don't even know if she was in the room. I mean, it's weird how she just shows up when she's going to be a salt shaker.
In what ways had he lost his trust in God? Now you can talk about the daughters.
Okay.
I mean, come on. If he trusted God, what if he said, oh, well, guess what? I got 2 virgin daughters. You can have them and do anything you want? No. So the offering of the daughters was not a good thing. Question 3, why did God decide to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah in the first place?
Well, Sodom and Gomorrah were full of terrible wickedness, and no matter what God did or who he sent, they still maintained all the wickedness, and they never turned to him. So his decision was to get rid of them.
Yep, that's exactly it.
He did it.
Was he justified? God?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the same thing with the flood, right? I mean, the world wasn't going to change.
And we learned they had 100 years to repent.
Yeah.
They built that ark.
That goes past being grace and
Yeah,
everything.
and
Yeah.
if people weren't going to follow him, then he had, and he created them. If they weren't going to follow him, then he had a right to.
Yep. And he did.
He did.
Yep. Okay, question 4. How did Lot end up committing incest with his daughters? So it says, what steps led him to that situation, beginning with his separation from Abraham? Okay, they separated. So what happens next? Abraham moves to the mountains. What does Lot do?
He moves to the city.
Yeah. For a while he was in a tent, but he moves to Sodom. Then what happens?
Well, then, when he's told to get out of town and tells the son-in-laws to go, they thought it was a joke. They stayed and then his daughters were left without their,
Yeah, but what happens with Lot way before that? The angels haven't come yet.
well,
He became important within Sodom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So then, okay, now the angels are there. What's the next step that Lot does?
He protects the angels.
Yeah, he protects the angels. Right.
To sacrifice his daughter.
And he sacrifices his daughters, right. Then, what happens? What do the angels tell Lot?
To leave
Now.
and not look back.
Go to the mountain.
That's right. Well, but he, right, he negotiated that. He wasn't going to go to the mountains. So, so the angels compromised, said he could go to Zor.
That was a family of negotiators. Abraham ate God. Well, you know.
Yeah.
A lot, you wanted it. Yeah, negotiators.
Okay, so now, okay, then they say, okay, you can go there. Well, then when he gets there, what happens?
He's afraid because he has no faith.
Yeah, he's afraid that they're going to come back at him for all that got destroyed, right? So, yeah, he doesn't believe. Here again, he lacks the faith he needs in God. Then what happens? The last thing.
Slept with the daughters.
Yeah.
yes, the daughters had no faith they would find a husband.
Yeah, well, when I read that, I had to sit there a while and think about it. I think, why did they think there were no men out there?
Because they could have gone to
They could have gone down the
Abraham.
mountain. There was.
Well, yeah,
Go to the mountains with Abraham and his large family.
which Lot eventually did. He did go to the mountains with Abraham. But, I mean, why did they suddenly think that there were no other men out there, that their dad was the only one left? I don't know. That was just a strange thing to me. But anyway,
Maybe they thought Sodom was the only place in the world or something.
I
Yeah.
don't think they knew another life other than Sodom.
Yeah, because they grew up in that.
Right. And their mother liked it there.
And they probably.
well, yeah, because she was important too, because her husband was important.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to go over the next section. We're going to go right to question 5. We're only going to do question 5 and 6. Question 5. What does the world teach concerning homosexuality? How does these teachings compare with the Bible's teaching? And how do you respond to this conflict? Okay.
I have a problem with that. The world thinks it's okay. The Bible says,
Right.
I looked up some stuff and you said that. Go on, finish.
Okay, so this goes back a lot of years. We used to go to the Colt games with 2 friends. And her nephew, and he was, probably 13, 12, 13. They used to watch our children while we went to the Colt games. And we would laugh and say, wonder when he realizes, because he,
Yeah.
that he was going to be, when's he going to come out? That's what we would say. And, I
The
mean,
13-year-old?
oh,
No, but that's who you're talking about, the
Yes,
13-year-old?
yeah.
Okay.
and he never did anything with the boys.
Yeah.
And he did. He went to California and was gay and married they got married, but he had a partner, and there was a child adopted. Well, then the partner was doing something with somebody, so he took the kid and left. And I mean, the kid has grown up to be fine.
Yeah.
And it just, I hate the fact that he's not gonna get to heaven,
Well, we don't know that.
See, we don't know
I
that.
don't know that.
But the Bible is saying,
Well, that's true, but
God
he
knows your
can,
hearts.
but he can ask God for forgiveness.
I'm sorry.
Look, think of the thief on the cross.
Last minute,
That's right.
Last minute.
all the sins are equal.
Yeah, there's no, hierarchy of sins. Murder and saying a lie are the same, they're sin. And God doesn't have this little, record book. I mean, that he says, oh, well, it's only a lie, so, no, it's a sin.
Funny though, the guy that we went to the cold game with had real bad congestive heart failure and passed away. And he had said to his daughter, I do not want anybody crying over me, give me a party. And she did, it was lovely.
That's sweet.
And he flew out from California to be at the party. And I tapped him on the shoulder. He turns around and he goes, oh, Miss Maureen.
So,
He gave a beautiful eulogy for the gentleman.
okay, so we all agree that homosexuality is not okay, right?
Yeah.
But the world teaches that it is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. But the Bible tells us, and in more places than one, it tells us that it is not. It's against what God intended. He intended sexual activity between a man and a woman. Now,
Inside of marriage.
inside a marriage, you're right.
So it's not just the homosexuals that have a sin, there's a lot of sin going on.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
I looked at that and I found out some interesting facts. It said with the decline of Christianity in our society, the worldviews have changed. The largest age group that went to church, studied the Bible, was the silent ears and the baby boomers. That was the group that said no LG, that's it. They were the Christians that went to church. Then by the time the 60s came along, things were relaxing. Well-known Christian leaders in the 1970s made a movement against I don't understand all of this, LGBTQ. And that was Graham, remember, with all his societies, and these people were saying it's wrong, it's wrong. Well, that generation of the 1970s picked up on this, and they started to put violence against the groups. That's when our government made the Protection Act to protect the homosexualities from the violence. Then it goes on where it says Generation X, Generation Z. It's okay. They're our friends. They're not hurting nothing. And these are the groups that's not in church anymore. So the Bible lacking in society, these kids do not even know that it's wrong. They're just accepting it. I was like, wow. Like this Pride Month, we do not need to wear their colors. There was a town in Canada, high school went to the town council and wanted to paint the rainbow colors on the sidewalk. And the townspeople went, no, you're not doing it, that's public land. We're not doing it. And as a result of everything, they even tore down the gay flag off of all government buildings. And they stood their ground. No, this is not right. But the kids wanted to paint, by City Hall, the rainbow colors. That's God's colors because of the Noah's Ark. Okay, can I tell you a true story where I got in trouble with a gay guy? It's funny, and I'm dumb. My brother-in-law was gay, my husband's brother. His name is Bob, and he is a very nice person. My kids are like this tall or this tall. And we were all going to go to Towson and see Bob's apartment. Because Bob, he knew how to decorate. He was that cool. Aretha Franklin on the walls with the piano and the dishes. And wow, we're walking all around that apartment. It's Christmas time. This beautiful tree. And I'm just walking around thinking, wow, that's really pretty, Bob. He walked into the bedroom. It was a beautiful room. And I stood there with my 2 kids next to me and said, well, where's the other bedroom? There's one bedroom. Where's the other bedroom? Because I wasn't putting things together. My kids understood, but where was my brain?
Did they go like this to you?
Oh, yeah. I got it here hard, and I got the kick. But it didn't dawn on me, you know, it just, I was just looking at it, but when I said it out loud. Where's the other bedroom? And my kid, and then my son, he says, I didn't think you understood, I thought you understood that. And I said, well, he's gay. He said, and my daughter has this thing where she is Mom, and that means I'm wrong.
That means just stop.
But
walking.
I
That's
could
what it
not
means.
believe, and I mean, I got, you know, they might have been like 12 and 8, and that's what I said in front of, it wasn't just in front of Bob and his boyfriend, it was John's parents were there. You know, the mother and father. Well, where's the other bedroom? Dumb.
But we do need laws to protect people.
Yeah, that, because of the violence.
If we're gonna have violence against people that are sinning, that's everybody.
Exactly.
Well, that's it.
So we can't.
Well, and the whole stuff that's going on in today's world with kids,
Where they have all the flags of the rainbow.
how they're trying to, you know, I mean, how they don't want kids to have health treatments, and I mean, it just blows my mind.
Last days.
They're still people,
There's still people.
Yes.
and
And the
Oh, come
other
on.
thing is,
That's where you see all these,
if you don't protect
Tardy
them,
got in trouble this year
They will
because they were
commit
selling
suicide.
Pride.
oh yeah,
is
Yeah.
that where we're, you
Yeah,
know?
Yeah.
what is
Are
Pride
people
Month?
happier with?
I don't know, I don't worry about it.
No, because Marie said she never heard of it. Remember Target got in trouble because they were selling the Pride T-shirts and the water thing?
I don't know, it's in the summertime, I think, isn't it?
It was a Tuesday.
Because that's when they have their big parade or
Got the backlash.
Yeah,
And when
because,
we were at Christiana Mall, I went past, I said, well, there's all the Rainbow Pride stuff that you can buy.
yeah.
And then it came out.
I have a neighbor that flies a Pride flag as soon as you drive in Box Hill across from the school. There it is. And my thought is, I don't care. Why do you have to fly that? Well, who cares? You know, like they say, what happened? I got on my mouth again. It was CNN, his mother was famous. What's that gray hair
Oh,
guy?
Anderson,
Anderson.
his mother.
I don't care if he's gay. Why do I need to know his episodes that he called his boyfriend kissing somebody in Times Square? That is not news to me, but they broadcast that on the TV a couple of years back. I don't need to know that. Why do they have to? Oh, well, anyway,
well, it's because the world accepts it all now.
let me tell you.
Not all, not we are.
Spent a lot of nights, 12 years in truck stops. And if that went on in a truck stop, they wouldn't be walking the next day.
Oh, that's true.
I
had
don't
two
even
cousins who
remember
were
what
truckers.
state it was. But I had my CB, and we always leave the CB, and when I was sitting in the driver's seat doing something, I don't know. And all of a sudden, there this CB comes and says, oh, and I'm going, oh, no. 2 guys are walking across the lot holding hands. You should have just heard it. It was colorful. But the other thing was, it could have been dangerous,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
you know, really.
That's so true.
So
Well,
why do you need
if they had any sense, they would know they don't go into a truck stop.
Well, they were drivers.
Oh,
Your dad's name's Swift.
Yeah, we own a big trucking firm.
Yeah, sure wish
And we have
A meat company too.
and we have a meat company, and we have a niece who can sing.
All right, but it's, sure wish I finished training Swift.
Oh, okay.
But the other line of it is 2 fags and a white semi. That's what Swift stands for. But you don't need to walk across a lot holding hands.
No. Okay, let's do the last question. Question 6. I knew that question was gonna.
Horrible.
2 Peter 2, verses 7 and 8 tells us that Lot was a righteous man. How do you reconcile that with his choices and actions in Genesis 19?
I got some information from footnotes, I think, in the Bible. Lot lost his father at an early age, and he was raised by Terah, the grandfather, and his uncle Abram. When faced with decisions, he tended to put off deciding, then chose the easiest course of action. Didn't see the consequences of his actions. It was hard to imagine what his life would have been without Abram, careful attention, and God's intervention. Living in a wicked culture so long shaped his outlook on the world.
That's, yeah.
I think it's at the bottom here, someplace.
It's interesting. Well,
It had to be
and,
because I didn't have anything else.
so, I mean, what does a righteous man mean?
That they believe in God, they believe in God's values, and therefore whatever God's values are, they show towards people around them, that they care, that they give them guidance, the
Oh.
truth.
So,
Maybe the fact that, how'd you say, he didn't partake of some of the cultural things that made him righteous, because at least he didn't do that.
yeah, I think that's why they continue to think of him as a righteous person, because he wanted the power, and that what that gave him, the authority and all that in the community, but he did not partake, right, of all of their other.
He became accustomed to their ways, and he only tolerated their actions of the people. But he showed no outward signs of his faith, and he did not defend his own personal values as a righteous man.
You're right, he didn't. Until,
The 2
He got
angels
drunk.
showed up and he saved
right,
them.
until the angels
Oh,
came.
yeah.
Then he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how, and then it says, how can a righteous man sink to such depths? Well, pretty easy.
Sin nature.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Always there.
No, it's just like a habit. You start something and then you continue to do it, and then when you try to break it,
I think his main thing was he liked being in control.
oh yeah, he did. That was his big deal.
Power was.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and come on. I mean, when he was with Abraham, he didn't have that, did he?
No.
Abraham was in control.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting that we do not hear about Lot anymore after this?
I know.
I thought that was interesting. Yep. So,
Like with these daughters, the importance is the value of those 2 boys and their history against the Israelites. If you didn't know that story, you would never know where those 2 types of people came from.
okay, so we know that, so next week we're off. And there is my understanding, there is a meal at 5:30, and then the service is at 6:30. But there's none during the day. And then on the 21st, we will talk about the birth of Isaac and Abram's faith confirmed, which is chapter 21 and 22.